You know, when you get right down to it, it's kind of amazing that we managed to release over 50 episodes of Hidden History without making this episode. Maybe it's because the work of J.R.R. Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit in particular, are so monumental in the development of the fantasy genre as a whole that narrowing it down to just a few influences can be surprisingly difficult. Sure, the idea of elves, dragons, dwarves, and goblins are all things that existed before the creation of Middle-earth. The idea of combining them all with a healthy dose of medieval European history to form a cohesive and interesting universe separate from our own, we have Tolkien to thank for that. So, while we're going through some of the most interesting individual Lord of the Rings references and Easter eggs to be found in the series, I think it's important that we start with the most single biggest piece of inspiration taken from Tolkien, which is basically all of it. The whole thing, Arena to Skyrim, because without Professor Tolkien, there's no fantasy genre as we know it. No Dungeons and Dragons, no Ultima Underworld, and of course no Tamriel. And that would be a world almost as bad as the worst plane of Oblivion. In one of the earliest episodes of Hidden History, we covered the similarities between Skyrim's city of Whiterun and the Lord of the Rings Edoras, the capital of Rohan. But that's not the only thing about the city that may be inspired by Tolkien. At the center of Whiterun stands the Gildergreen, a giant tree born from the branches of the ancient Eldergleam tree. Many have paralleled this with the legendary White Tree, which sits at the center of Minas Tirith, the capital of Gondor. I mean, sure, they're both trees, but the relationship between the two is actually a lot more interesting than just that surface level piece of trivia. Both trees are seen as having a special connection to a long lost power. For the Gildergreen, it's the Eldergleam tree, and for the White Tree of Gondor, it's the Two Trees of Valinor, which were there long before anything else existed in the world according to Middle-earth lore. Likewise, many in Skyrim believe the Eldergleam tree to be the oldest thing on the continent and maybe Tamriel itself. There's also the fact that, like the Gildergreen, the White Tree of Gondor is slowly dying, making the connections between the trees even more concrete. In Skyrim, you may also come across a curious character named Moria, who is a clear shout out to the Lord of the Rings' beloved murderous weirdo Gollum, even down to wearing a very worn out loincloth and repeating the famous catchphrase "My precious" when trying to defend her beloved ring. So yeah, references don't get much more clear cut than that, but things get a bit more subtle from there. The quest you first encounter Moria on is called A Night to Remember, which many have claimed is a reference to Bilbo Baggins' line, "Gandalf, my old friend, this is gonna be a night to remember," in the first of Peter Jackson's films. Also, there's the name Moria itself, which could be an allusion to the Mines of Moria, which may seem kind of random until you remember that that was actually the place where the Fellowship first encountered Gollum in the film, drawing another parallel between the two. Oh, and one little extra Gollum Easter egg is found in the Elder Scrolls Online, where it is rumored that you can hear him quietly saying precious to himself deep inside Tooth Maw Gully. Many Elder Scrolls fans tend to cite Oblivion as the game in the series that has the most in common with The Lord of the Rings, so it will probably come as no surprise that it contains some of the most blatant references to Middle-earth found in the series. There's the obvious, of course, as most fans will know that the Fellowship of the Ring actor and human meme generator Sean Bean voiced Emperor Martin Septim. Maybe as a nod to this, Todd Howard and the team placed a character named Boromir in the secret Todd test location of the game, which is only accessible through console commands. This area was used by Bethesda to test player interactions during the development of the game, but there's some clever references to be found in the actual game too. Take Offord Gabbings, for instance, a character who plays a big role in the Oblivion book Macabre Manifest. Gabbings is mentioned as carrying a few interesting items: a leather-bound notebook, a travel cloak with a green leaf fastener, and an enchanted short sword with ancient writing on the blade. Oh, and a golden ring bearing a strange inscription. And if that still isn't enough to tip you off, there's also the fact that Offord Gabbings just so happens to be an anagram of the name Frodo Baggins. Alright, time for some comments. This week we have a great one from Jason Morley, who let us know about a theory of his, which I'm gonna quote pretty closely here because there's a lot of scary math words in it. According to Jason, the Nordic deity Shor may be named after Shor's algorithm, a quantum algorithm for integer factorization formulated in 1994, which was created by mathematician Peter Shore. The deity has a contradictory nature, similar to that of a quantum state, being all possible things at once. So it's possible that this feared deity actually came from a modern math algorithm. Really cool stuff. Thanks for that, Jason. Next up, we have a slightly less heady comment from Sterling Archer, who I guess took a break from his busy spy schedule to tell us the inspiration for all 9 gods is Chuck Norris. Man, that's a dated one. People are still doing Chuck Norris references? Holy crap. Oh shit, he's in my house! Now let's get down to some trivia. Last week we asked you what the McClellan family townhome in Fallout 3 was a reference to, and we actually got quite a few wrong answers for once. The answer was C, Fahrenheit 451. And if you've been following our series since the beginning, you have no excuses for getting it wrong, because a very early Hidden History episode actually had the answer to this trivia question in it. Shame on you. This week we have a Lord of the Rings inspired Elder Scrolls question for you. What Oblivion item actually contains the same inscription as Sauron's One Ring? A, Weatherward Circlet. B, the Black Band. C, the Eye of Sithis. Or D, the Jewel of Rumer. And if you like Hidden History, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And if you really like our channel and want to support the making of videos like these and others, then go head to our Patreon page where you can donate whatever you want to help us make videos here for you.